Hello, everyone, and welcome to Increase B2B Awareness with Experience-Driven Commerce. We're going to start with a little recap of the session before, just to get everybody in the frame of mind. In the first session, it was a joint session between B2B and B2C, where we really talked about what B2B experience-driven commerce was. So as a reminder, experience-driven commerce results when an organization transforms from a siloed, manual, transactional culture to a customer-centric, insights-informed, omnichannel culture enabling meaningful customer relationships. The top 3 points we want to remind you of is that experience-driven commerce is not just about a technology, and that it's critical to understand the buying journeys of your customers. And remember that a journey is not a destination. I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Karie Daudt, and I'm a senior commerce strategist here at Perficient, and I will be the moderator. Next is Justin Racine. Justin Racine is a senior commerce consultant and works with clients to build and achieve their business goals through commerce-enabled technologies. Justin has over 12 years of experience within the commerce space, has spoken at over 20 global conferences on e-commerce and branding strategy, has been published twice for his thought leadership on branding and marketing in the Henry Stewart Journal of Brand Strategy, and is a frequent contributing writer for many leading industry publications. Next is Grant Davies. Grant Davies is a principal in the digital strategy practice here at Perficient. Grant specializes in web and mobile strategy, customer experience design, and design thinking. Grant develops insights and informed strategies across multiple industries, including healthcare, energy, and manufacturing. Grant helps clients understand the impact of a great experience and how mobile needs to fit in a client's overall customer experience. And our next subject matter expert is Eric Inga. Eric is a leader in the digital marketing practice for Perficient. He designs, studies, and produces industry-related research to help prove, debunk, or evolve assumptions about digital marketing practices and their value. Eric is a writer, blogger, researcher, teacher, and keynote speaker and panelist at major industry conferences. Partnering with several other experts, Eric served as the lead author of The Art of SEO. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be learning today. We're going to be talking about the what, the why, and the how. What is B2B experience-driven commerce at the awareness stage? Definition and synopsis. What does a modern B2B awareness experience look like? Talking about the art of the possible. Why? Why invest in B2B experience-driven awareness? There's customer benefits and there's significant business benefits. And the how. How to approach experience-driven awareness, key capabilities, key considerations, and technology. And now I'm going to turn it over to Eric Inga to kick us off.
Yes, thanks everybody for joining our session today. It's such a great topic, and understanding your potential customers and their wants and needs is a critical success factor for any business, really. This includes knowing what activities they engage in online to help satisfy those wants and needs. So, for example, what sites do they visit for information? What online tools and apps do they use? How do they use search engines? What search queries do they use on those search engines? And this is the starting point for understanding how to generate awareness and for driving business growth. So all of these needs feed into how you establish relevancy in the potential customer's mind. They want to know, can this company help solve my problem? And also the experience you provide them, not just on your website, but across the entire web. These are the factors that drive success in helping prospects discover your business, and offering consistent experience across all channels helps build trust and reinforce that you can help them with their needs.
Okay, so speaking of back to basics here, ultimately, do you understand your customers, your employees, your distributors, depending on your audience, what their motivations they have? Are you just making assumptions, right? Everyone says they do user journeys and personas. Often they're done in the lunchroom. Often they're done interpreted by not talking to the users. And are they up to date, and are they focused on what users need and not what stakeholders, just what stakeholders needs? So if you've done some of it, do more, do it again, keep it relevant. Business consumers are picky. Business owners are also consumers, and they're even more picky. And typically the result to a phone call or calling a business instead of using their digital products. So we have to understand what they want, and we have to give them a great experience if we want them to engage through digital, because forever they've used the phone. Does the experience really delight those business users? Is it just trying to increase conversion? And ultimately make it fast, make it optimized, and make sure it works on all my devices. It works on a phone is not good enough. It should be a pleasure to work on a phone, and just as well as me working on my desktop.
And as we see from this data point here, the online environment plays a huge role in B2B buying decisions. This data point from the CMO Council. And as a result, any strategy you put together really has to think about this and think about the role of online content on your site, because it's your opportunity to communicate effectively with prospective clients. And it's such an important area to address, and we see it's under-addressed in so many different businesses. And then you have to supplement this with the right level of promotion and getting the word up about that content across the web to make people aware of the great content that you have.
Great, thanks, Eric. So as we kind of dive into this topic today around B2B awareness, we've really outlined three different sort of segments. The now, which are the table stakes of things that you really should be doing today. Then looking into the new and the emerging. So things that not a ton of folks are doing, but if you are doing it, you're likely ahead of your competition and setting the pace. And then the next, the innovating, or really the things that not really anyone is doing today. There might be few people who are operating in the space specifically within B2B, but it's really what's coming down the road. How do we kind of peek around the bend and see what the future holds? And as we dive into these three different topics, we'll kind of cover them high level and then talk a little bit in further detail about how you might be able to get started within each. So as we look at experience and relevancy as the first, which is the one that I'll take on, there's three different segments that we've listed here. So really table stakes, and we talked about this in some of the previous slides, is that you have to have a deep understanding of who your customers are, what's important to them, what their buying journeys look like, and really make sure that you have that baseline understood. And you can do that through voice of the employee and voice of the customer, asking your people within your organization, asking your actual customers, what are you looking for within the experience? If we're going to drive awareness to an experience, we want to make sure that this is table stakes and that we have those expectations to be met, if not exceeded. As we move into a new or emerging areas within experience and relevancy, really looking at content personalization. Again, if you're spending money driving the right type of traffic and the right type of channel, you want to make sure that the content that is on the site is personalized for whoever that specific persona is. And then the last piece here around experience and relevancy for the future is how can we really make sure that content that's personalized can be taken even further. So how is the entire experience personalized, maybe not just from content, but also site features and workflows from a commerce standpoint? Maybe certain personas have some features where others don't. They just may not need them. So we don't want to have them be used on the site. And we can look at other things as well too, like looking at behavioral changes and leveraging different technologies to automatically change experiences based upon potentially how someone finds the site, what channel they're in, and different pieces of content that they interact with within the site. So those are the kind of the three within experience and relevancy that are table stakes, because the next phase here is driving the right traffic. So once you have that experience set, you have to drive the right traffic to make sure that the folks who are hitting your site, it's within the realm of what they're looking for. And I'll pass it to Eric here to talk a little bit further around, what driving the right traffic means within the now, the new, and the next segments here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Justin. I mean, really, you have to think more beyond just what you're doing with your homepage or just broadcasting hard commercial selling messages and giving people opportunities to buy things. Instead, you have to think, as I talked about before, how you're using your content to build trust and encourage people to want to buy from you, and then supplement that with a robust SEO and paid media program, and actually really good KPIs and tracking and measurement, so you can continuously optimize over time. And through this, as you move into sort of the new stage of things, you can begin to enable self-service and allow buyers to make those decisions and be able to do things on their own, or self-identify themselves as somebody who's interested in talking to one of your salespeople. So that's really important. And the content piece is you got to start answering the questions they have with content online on your site, so they don't have to get a human to get the answer to that question. And then as that content evolves and grows in depth and breadth, you start getting to a much broader and deeper level of way that you're covering not just the higher level questions, but a lot of the more detailed questions that people have.
So looking at market landscape from a personalization perspective, on most B2B sites, users are known and logged in. Obviously, sometimes they're not, but predominantly they are. Tailor that experience and that workflow based on that user's history and buying behavior. Don't just give them the same experience every time they visit, even though you know who they are. Business users are on their phones and tablets. They don't do everything on a smaller screen, but they often do research, checking the status on something, looking at a product or a manual. Make sure that the experience is great across all their devices, and understand that that experience is probably disconnected. It'll start on one device, it'll finish on another. Don't assume that they're on a desktop with a big screen, and don't assume they're always on their phone. Cross-device experience is absolutely critical to a successful digital product.
So as we look to move forward here, we wanted to showcase some examples of some good and some room for improvement around B2B awareness, with some real life examples that we felt were really solid for this conversation today. So the first one here that I'll talk about a little bit is what Fastenal has set up on their site. When you go to Google and search for construction supply wholesale or construction supply manufacturer, Fastenal is one of the first sites that will actually appear within the search engine results. And when you land on this page, it gives you all the information that you're looking for. So it has the text on the left-hand side here, where it clearly defines that Fastenal is a construction supply destination. It gives a little bit of paragraphs in here around why they feel that they're good at this specific vertical. They have a specific email address that you can actually reach out to and contact someone right away. And they've also loaded in video content on the right-hand side to give you an overview of all of the different reasons why they feel that you should purchase your content or your construction supplies from Fastenal. And the good thing about this is that it's an informational search, right? Someone who is searching for this, they're maybe not ready to buy yet. They're trying to find out more about the business, and this provides that avenue for them. We didn't have enough room on this page to show below, but there's actually different categories of products listed here as well too. So a user doesn't have to authenticate to view what's in their catalog. They can find out why Fastenal is the best for construction supply, and they can also see different variations of categories of product that they could purchase if they do happen to set up an account. Oh, and by the way, if they have other questions outside of that and they don't want to self-serve, there's a construction sales manager at fastenal.com email right there for them to start conversations. So this is a triple threat from that standpoint of really providing the right type of content based upon the awareness that someone is looking for through their searches through Google. I'll pass to Eric here to talk a little bit more around Salesforce.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, no, actually, Salesforce is a great example from creating a very strong presence out on the web. The charts I'm showing you here have been pulled from SEMrush. Up top, you see the very strong level of organic search traffic they're getting. That's the two sort of the filled in blue lines section, if you will. And then the lower chart is the paid search trends. But equally important to the fact that they have growing programs in both these areas where they're continually growing their presence is that in the organic search side of things, they're driving a lot of non-branded traffic. So obviously Salesforce has a huge brand name, and hence is going to get a lot of people searching for them by their brand name. But when we talk about non-branded terms, we're talking about terms where these are searches that potential buyers do around their areas of need that don't actually use any company's brand name. And I like to say this is where new customers come from, because if they don't use your brand name in the search query, then it's quite likely that they haven't already made a decision to buy from you, right? So ranking for those non-branded searches is incredibly important. And then the paid media program is where you can actually supplement that by also bidding on those non-branded terms. And the organic search and paid media support each other together by giving you potentially 2 bites at the apple, if you will, on those non-branded terms. But Salesforce does this through great content, a really strong technical SEO on their site, and just a really well managed overall program that's driving continual growth for their business. But with that, let's hear from Grant.
So let's look at some areas for room for improvement. In the left shot here, here's an example. The chat is covering the content and it's getting in the way. So chat's there to help people, but you're actually hindering people because they can't read the content and it's covering things up. Why not make it smaller, hide it, or make it appear after a certain amount of dwell time? If somebody's on a page for a while and they might need help, you could pop it up then. In the middle shot, this is a mobile view. You can see this is a product catalog for a company, so you can look at products. When you look at the details of a product, a modal pops up and it's obscured, so you can't read it. In some cases, in this particular one, you can close it because the X is on the far right, but in some we saw you can't close it, it's hard to read. So this is pretty useless for a user on their phone. And then finally on the far right, there's a block here, so I want to look at something. Maybe there's a way for me to look at a non-logged in experience. Maybe I could look at some book pricing, or maybe there's just some way to get me engaged, but instead I'm being blocked and requiring me to create an account. That's not really giving me great business service.
So just expanding upon some of the themes that we've already been talking about, this is actually data from Google, and it's actually incredible. 90% of B2B buyers find information about products through internet searches, right? So 90% of these journeys involve at least one or more stops with search. So in order to be eligible for that, in particular those non-branded queries I referred to before, you need to have done the right things with your site in order to be able to be eligible to show up for those services. But in addition, you really need to do the keyword research to identify what phrases your potential customers are using, and further research to understand what search phrases are driving business results for your competitors, because you can learn from that and try to steal some of that traffic back from them. And all of that, as I said, has to be on top of that sound technical site, SEO site architecture. And once again, as I mentioned before, using paid media to also bid on those terms. But this 90% statistic just tells you how important search has become, even in the B2B world. And of course, the pandemic that we went through over the past year plus has only heightened that level of need. So ultimately, awareness is how new customers find you, right? And as I've already alluded to, more and more B2B customers are relying on the web than ever. And direct sales teams that many B2B companies have, of course, can still play a really big role in your overall sales program and helping build trust and build relationships on an ongoing basis with clients. But so much of this starts online and in search, as I've highlighted so far today. And I mean, ultimately, what would be awesome is if you're getting a lot of leads from your website, which are being brought to your salespeople to act on, and it just ends up being a wonderful way to drive a very significant level of deal flow. And this whole need set that we've talked about really has been enhanced by the COVID-19 pandemic It just drove so many changes in the overall sales process. So ultimately, you need to tailor your online presence so that when buyers are searching, that you're the business that they're finding, and that your outstanding content and experience is creating the trust that will enable them to potentially become your customer. And in fact, here's some data from a survey done by the Coca Sexton podcast that just illustrates how much of a huge factor trust is in B2B sales. And it makes sense. The buying cycles are longer, and the costs are often higher. It just becomes so important to really be comfortable with who you're buying from, and things like service and experience and the way you treat people, not just in those in-person interactions, but also, through the overall experiences you offer to them across the web, become really incredibly important in helping build that trust. To supplement this point just a bit further, here's data from actually an enterprise SEO tool vendor known as Conductor. They did a survey, and admittedly it was B2C specific, but our experience at Perficient shows that this is true with the B2B clients that we work with, is that when a potential buyer sees a piece of content online, the fact that it helps build some trust actually does lead to an increased propensity and likelihood that they will buy from you in the future.
Yeah, so as we kind of look forward here and look to the how, right? So we understand what this is, B2B awareness. Eric just detailed a little bit about the why this is important. And COVID-19, as he spoke about, was really a huge factor for folks both on their own personal life and as well as B2B, because so many different products were on allocation. Yeah, if you are a B2B organization in the space, you're really going to have to focus in on awareness going forward, because those behaviors have been learned, and you need to make sure that you're accounting for this as part of your digital strategy for growth, and really foundationally to keep the customers that you have. And it's really all about finding out who your customers are and then tailoring and wrapping that experience for them in the various personas that they have, both authenticated, so when someone comes to your site and signs in and is ready to purchase, and pre-authentication as well too, like we saw in Fastenal's example earlier, where they clearly knew that I was someone who was in the construction space, who was looking to buy supplies based upon my search, and they've developed and curated content for that specific persona so that when I landed on the site, I had all the information that I needed to be comfortable to make an account or to make a purchase. So as we go further into this experience-driven commerce, specifically around B2B awareness, we've listed out here some different things that you can start to focus on, and take home to kind of work within your business today. So as we kind of start at the top here, when we're looking at persona development and defining the customers, mostly everyone here should have Google Analytics within their site today, or some level of analytic program that they're using to manage and really determine who folks are that are on their site to get those baselines. But from there, you want to start speaking to your customers and your employees to determine what really is important to them. You'll be able to see what the data shows, but you want to validate through actual conversations as well. From here, you can move back into building out the new features that might be needed based upon the voice of the customer and the voice of the employee and what your data is saying, and really figure out what sort of enhancements and workflows are needed to further the experience for these personas as your site moves forward. And then the last piece here, which is really the evolution, right, or the continuation of this project, because B2B awareness really is never dead, and commerce is certainly never dead. So you always want to make sure that you're tracking and pivoting where needed, specifically when you have access to data and analytics, and when your customers potentially could change and maybe their interests are different. And that really leads into the second point here, which Eric will speak about, is you might have to even change how you're driving awareness, and your customers might change. So Eric, I'll pass it to you to talk a little bit about making sure that you're always attracting the right customer at the right time.
Yeah, no, thanks, Justin. I mean, it's building on top of what Justin said. Part of developing that persona really is identifying the places where those prospects go online. What are the things they're doing? What are the tools they're using? What are the sites they're visiting, and all of that? And that's part of building the model of them and understanding who they are and what they do. And then following that on to that is just understanding from the persona what your messaging should be. It's from the content on your site, from the marketing messages on your site, what you put in your paid media campaigns, how you tailor your page titles and meta descriptions so they communicate your messages in the Google search results. And then, following this up with multi-channel campaigns, inclusive of SEO and paid search and other applicable channels to push those messages out, keeping in mind that whole persona profile, which is such a critical part of this. And then not just for paid media and SEO campaigns, I'd actually also argue for your personas and your customer journey models and all of those things. You need to view it as one of continuous improvement, right? Nothing's a set it and forget it here. You collect data, you pull in the information, you learn from that, you tune your campaigns, you tune your journey models, you tune everything and continuously improve over time. But Grant, why don't you talk a little bit about the omnichannel coverage aspect of this?
So a couple of things to touch on omnichannel and beyond, but when we talk about customer journeys, one of the opportunities, it's not just interviewing customers to define the experience, but build working groups. We found that business units are the most engaged and supported if they're included in the development of a product, website or mobile or whatever it is. And ultimately, if you're making their job easier, what they need to do, they're willing to help if they're included and engaged. And we've seen that very helpful for defining a product and making it the best experience they can have. And mapping that journey, not just the activities and the touch points, but the devices and the activities they do on those devices. And finally, from that perspective, is defining the capabilities and the features that those users are going to do by role. So you've not only got the devices they're doing, but also different business users have different roles within your products. So there might be somebody who is a buying personality, they might be researching, they might be checking something, they might be picking up a product. So understanding those different roles and personas, the activities they want to do and the devices they're on is critical to having a really good customer experience.
So as we kind of looking in closing here, looking at measuring success across these different areas, there's really 6 sort of key elemental or foundational things that you can look at from a KPI standpoint to really measure how you're doing in these different areas, and they all sort of correlate together. So looking at acquisition costs, so really, looking at what your total cost is by different media stream that you're spending to actually acquire the customer and having them convert. Looking at new versus returning customer rates, so are 80% of your customers coming to your site today returning and only 20% are new? We want to make sure that we're attracting new folks in and trying to potentially even out that percentage. Looking at things like average time on site and exit rates, this is a huge piece as well. So if someone has very high exit rates and very low average on time, maybe they're only spending 10 seconds on a page and 90% of the folks hitting that page are bouncing, it's likely a good chance that the content that's on that page really isn't meeting their needs, or they found the page through some avenue that they didn't expect. Maybe they were in a informational search and they landed on a transactional page and it just doesn't meet their expectations. The other one here is new customer attribution. So being able to attribute different customers that you have and through either signups or different attribution awareness angles. The other piece here is omnichannel KPI alignment. So looking at things like mobile versus PC, how do the KPIs in all of these categories align and differ based upon the channel? There might be folks who have different expectations or having different searches in a mobile device versus a desktop. So we want to make sure that there's alignment on the different elements there. And then the last piece, which is really foundational, is customer lifetime value. So and as it alludes to here, as awareness becomes becomes more targeted to the customers, the lifetime value will essentially increase, because they're going to be looking to come back to your site for more pieces of information because they found what they needed through the previous sessions that they've had with either searching online or really just having your site and platform be a recognized area of truth of content. So these are 6 areas that you likely have some sort of statistics on today somewhere in your business. And as you're looking to measure the success of your B2B awareness, we recommend looking in and honing in on these 6 foundational elements to help measure success. Not sure if Eric or Grant, you have anything else to add here, but any additional context is definitely valuable.
No, definitely keeping that acquisition cost down, as you said, Justin, and systematically measuring and doing the right things to understand what that number is. It's such an important thing for your business, and doing the right things to bring that down over time. And part of that, I'm just kind of touching on the first and last points here, truly understanding that customer lifetime value, because the relationship between that acquisition cost and that lifetime value is among the most important economic things you can understand about your business.
Yeah, last thing I would add is performance here. Although it's not an alignment KPI, one thing that's often neglected is the product is launched, and during launch it's tested, it's good, but we highly encourage testing performance, not just functionality. Automate that testing, have KPIs related to performance in terms of the bandwidth and the latency, and continuously improve, and be told when your products are not performing well, so that you can be proactive instead of reactive as it comes to those products.
Awesome. Great points. Thanks, guys.
So we hope you enjoyed this session. One of the things we want to talk about is how Perficient can help. We obviously have a significant amount of experience and knowledge in this area. And one of the things that we've done is we've created what we like to talk about as offers, right? So there's a list of offers here as you start thinking about, digital marketing IQs, experience, strategy, and road mapping, persona development. Our practices that as examples. Also, as our practice, we have lots of different areas that obviously impact the topics that we talked about today, including digital strategy, experience design, digital marketing, commerce, and digital experience platforms as a whole, right? When we talk a lot about content and commerce. And then as you think about tools and methods, we shared with you a little bit today about the Now New Next model. We also have digital marketing IQ, CX AMP, mobile AMP. We have lots of different, we've got commerce assessment tools that we also use to align to the experience, to platforms that are going to support what you're trying to accomplish. So just keep in mind that Perficient is here to help, and that we have a lot of experience and knowledge, obviously, in this area. So as we think about it, let Perficient help you on your digital transformation journey, right? We talk a lot about the fact that the B2B journey and transformation, it really aligns to the whole concept of people, process, and technology. It's not just a solution. And Perficient is a leading digital consultancy. We help transform some of the world's biggest brands. We're very well known as a trusted end-to-end digital provider. We partner with many Global 2000 companies and other large enterprise customers across North America. So keep us in mind when you're thinking about your digital transformation, and we're here to make you successful. That's what we're all about. So we want to remind you that our roundtable sessions are a series, and the next session will be about realizing active engagement through experience-driven commerce. And we really invite you to attend that next session. We really appreciate you attending today, and we look forward to engaging with you in the future. Have a wonderful day.